This project is called the Gripper Road Center. I have this one completed up here to show you a couple of important things. This obviously somewhat complicated part requires quite a number of different techniques to create. Biggest question with this is where to start. For many of these features, there are some reference points in the drawing. The two biggest reference points are this circle here and the center here. There are many dimensions that refer to the centers of these two circles. Now, obviously, this lies flat on some plane, and so that's where it's going to be centered. So I believe that this hole and counterbore are the most crucial locations for this part. So I'm going to base my model off of that assumption that this center is the most important aspect of this part. Planning this out is a very important part of solid modeling. You want to think about your parts ahead of time so that you know where you're going to start, you know where you're going to end up, you know how you're going to get there, and it's all going to make sense to the next person who sees your model. If it doesn't make sense, you're missing half the point. Okay, so what we're going to do is start not even with anything physical. I've decided that that axis is the most important thing, so I'm going to actually create a reference axis. And it was two planes, the front plane and the right plane, that determined that axis. Never caught my right plane there. There it is. And there's my axis. Now, I'm going to create the lower part, and this looks like it was designed to be machined out of one large section and then cut down. So I'm going to start on the front plane and make an extruded boss and place my origin on the bottom plane of the part at the center of that hole where I put my axis. So go from here, far right to far left, then up. Now I can capture this circle. I'm going to do the right hand side first. But I can capture that circle, at least its outline, fairly easily. I'm going to make a tangent arc from this point, and I'm going to end right there. Now all I have to do is dimension everything. I'm going to start with this arc, and I could just let it be a radius and take it and divide it by 2. But instead, I'm going to right click on it, go to display as diameter, and then I can enter in the diameter just like I wanted. So it's a 41 millimeter diameter. And I'm going to put in a center line here. Make sure that it's vertical so that I can create a nice easy 30-degree dimension there, specifically with respect to vertical. And let's hit the big one. So you got 48 here and 121 across there. 41 here. And the center from here to here is 38. And the height here is 44. Make sure that that's tangent. Yeah, that's tangent right there. The height here is 29. And the distance from the center of this circle to the outside is 12. That makes everything turn black. I did notice that my drafting scheme is in ISO. So I'm going to go up here, go to Document Properties, so ISO, go to ANSI, hit OK, and it looks a little better to me. Okay, everything's turned black, and we are good to go. Now this is showing a blind protrusion. We want a mid-plane, and diagram says that it's 32 millimeters wide, and looks good to me. Now, because I have chosen that this axis is the most important thing, I think we should probably put in the hole. So we're going to put a hole wizard in here. And note that I have this set to ANSI metric. If you don't do that and you just type in specific numbers here, things might get a little large because you'll be typing in 2 inches rather than 2 millimeters. So our central hole shows a bore diameter of 12. And we need to use the correct hole type here. So here's our counterbore of 25 and a depth of that counterbore of 2. We need to make a position for that. And note how I'm going to put a point Note how I did not put the point right over here, because Hole Wizard is a little difficult in that manner. It's best to put the point offset from where you actually want it, then go back in, stop putting points in, and align it exactly where you want it to go. In this case, I want it to be right on top of that axis, coincident, and here it is. Okay, now to make the ears and forehead and nose of what looks like a dog, I will go to Features, Extruded Boss Base, and we'll be making this off the front plane. Change my view to front, and I'll make a circle. Now I can simply hover over this arc. The center of the arc will appear. I can click there, come out here. Unfortunately, it won't specifically associate with that, so I will need to make it happen. If I click there, hold my mouse key down, hold my control key down, click on that. If I click here and hold my control key down, click on that edge, I can make them co-radial, which means they share the same center and the same radius. Good with that. Now I just need to make the inside part. There we go, and it is to be 28.55. Well, it's 28.57 high, 28.52 low ream. Obviously, some other part is going to be inserted in here, and these are very tight tolerances, so it's got to fit right. So again, as this is a mating part, this is a very important detail of the entire model. And we want to do another mid-plane extrusion, and it indicates it is 38 millimeters wide. There it is. Next step, I'm going to go back to that front plane again, make another extrusion, and now the top of the forehead of the dog comes right off of the top of the circle. So comes down over, down like this, and then this should go right on that circle. Now to finish it off, we don't want to leave this hanging, although sometimes it can be helpful or easy to do. We should always try to close the loop. Don't want to get these computers confused. So I can make a center point arc. I just hover over this circle and the center comes out. There it is. And now I'm trying to go around. But notice how it's not doing it the way I wanted it to go. Here it is. Now if you're having trouble seeing it, all you got to do is move this around. Ah, there's the edge. And we can come right up here. And I can just click this button to go back to the view we just had. And it's time to dimension. So from here up to here, overall dimension of 51 millimeters. I think I'll make another center line from here out. Make sure it's horizontal. Dimension this to be 14 degrees. This is 13. 28. And this is 14 here. And one thing that may not be very obvious is that this needs to be not just on the circle, but it needs to be tangent to the circle at this point. So I'm going to make sure that this point here, I'm going to make sure that this line here, hold the control key down, and this arc here are indeed tangent. And everything turns black. I'm done with my sketch, looking it over. And again, we need to choose a mid-plane extrusion that is only 20 millimeters wide. And there is the snout of the dog. Moving over to the haunches of the dog, going to turn it upside down. Make a boss base from this plane here. And just need to make a few quick lines. Note how I'm still going to close the loop. Make that circle. And then, whoops, made a mistake. Okay, just hit escape. Dimension this as 6 millimeters. This depth as 16. From this line to this line, 26. And from here to here is a horizontal. Again, we can go at a slant or we can go vertical, but horizontally 16. We just don't know where it is. We're going to have a hard time dimensioning this to the center of the dog ears, but we can go to View, Temporary Axes, and here's the axis. The axis comes up from here to here. It's supposed to be 26 millimeters. And this center here is supposed to be 24 off of that center. Finally, this center and this center must be vertically aligned. Just line them up top to bottom. We don't need to make any other dimensions than that. Now, oh dear, it's going the wrong direction. All we have to do is click this button and it's going the correct direction, and its height is to be 16 millimeters. That's about right. Now we can simply take that, go to Features, Mirror, and we're going to mirror about the front plane. There it is. Next, we're going to work on cutting out the section here. I'm going to go back to the bottom, click on that plane, go to an extruded cut, view from the bottom, go here, down, over, down, out to here, up to the corner, and then back here to close the loop. The dimensions are fairly straightforward. That's why I use it as a cut rather than extruding it. This shows 13. This is 3. Okay, from here to here is 6. And from here to here is 29. And everything's turned black and looks good. Now it's not going to be blind, it's going to be through all. We've got going the right way. There it is. So this is our base shape. Now all that we need to do are put in a couple of holes. And so our first set of holes, we'll deal with Hole Wizard again. I'm going to put them in on this side. They are angled countersink. So the through hole for each of these is 6 millimeters, and it widens out to 9 millimeters using an angle of 82 degrees. And our positions are approximately here and there. And we'll get a closer look how to dimension them. So this shows 54 millimeters to this main axis and a height between the two of 22 millimeters. And the first one is 13 millimeters from the base. And then all we have to do is put in a relation between this and this. And we want them vertically aligned. And that's what we got. And they go all the way through. Okay, one more hole. And this really shows you the benefit of making sure your Hole Wizard hole is not located exactly where you click. In this case, it can cause some troubles. And you want to make sure that it's right where you want it anyway. So in this case, we have a 4 millimeter through hole, and it expands out to 6 with an angle of 60 for countersink, and we want it right there. Not really. We want to make sure that we click off of selecting points and select that point and hold down the control key, and we want to be right on top of the circle, right where this edge is. And we could put it coincident and then make it go on to one of these planes. I believe it's the front plane, but we can also just choose midpoint, which will do both in one click. Now here's our trouble. This is going all the way through the bottom. We don't want that. We just want it to go through next. So let's go back over to type. Look down here. End condition through all. And let's just go up to next. That'll do just fine. There we are. All of the major features. Now I'm going to take that view temporary axes out, and I'm not going to be using this axis at this point, so I'm going to right click on it, and if I suppress it, everything else gets suppressed. That's not good. That's not what I wanted. I'm going to bring it back up, unsuppress it, and maybe the easiest thing to do is undo the suppression. I just want to hide it. So I want to right click and hide it, and there it is. It's gone. Last but not least, we have all of those rounds and fillets, and they may be simple, at least seemingly simple, but they are actually quite difficult to accomplish. This is one of those cases where it's easier to draw them in on a sheet of paper and just say, do a 2mm round, than it is to actually achieve in solid modeling, because the computer will say, hey, this is running into that, and it's only a round. It's not that big of a deal, but it is to the computer when the geometry doesn't add up. Well, first things first, these two edges actually are indicated, kind of hard to see, as 6mm radii. So we're going to go to fillet and click on these two edges here, and make them 6mm. And notice how this runs into the other circle, creating some funky geometry. That's a little bit weird, but like I said, the computer will take you literally. Next thing to do is to make the rounds down here. Now notice that filleting that and that edge, I'm going to make sure that it's 2mm. Even so, this can cause a problem. They run into each other, and so we'll have to delete one of them and then see what happens. Okay, this works. Now we go in and make a different fillet for that edge, and it goes over the other one instead of trying to be made at the same time. Now notice we also have problems right here with this edge running into this funny geometry. So let's see if we can do that. Fillet. That edge. And this edge. 2mm. And it's having a hard time calculating it all and does not like it. So I'm not going to waste any more of your time showing you things that won't work. I will let you waste your own time trying to figure out how to make all of these fillets. Some of them are fairly easy and straightforward. Some, especially in this area, are not. To recap, I started out not even making an extrusion. I started out with an axis because this seems to be the most important aspect of the entire part because of the dimensioning that goes along with it. It must be used to assemble to other parts of the assembly, so I made that first. Next, I extruded this boss in a fairly complex shape so that I could make use of its overall dimensions and easily create some of the next features afterwards. I used that axis to make this hole that's so important. And it was pretty simple to make the ears of the dog, and then the snout of the dog had a couple tricks in it, especially up here where I had to make it tangent and coincident on that circle. Then I made this simple protrusion and mirrored it on the other side. Then cut this shape out, and the base parts were done. Made the holes using Hole Wizard, made this hole using Hole Wizard. Again, creating the points off of where you actually want them so that you can place them exactly where you want them and not have any troubles. I made these fillets so that first, so that we could see that they were not the same dimension as the others, and also so a 2mm fillet can travel all the way down each of these sides. Then finally showed you the difficulties in creating the fillets down below here and in this strange area that will cause some troubles for you. And this was the Gripper Road Center.